Most people think they're afraid of change, but that's not entirely true. You can want change, pray for change, talk about change, romanticize change, and still wake up every day choosing the same life. Not because you're lazy, not because you're weak, but because your comfort zone is not just a place, it's a pattern. And patterns feel safe, even when they're ruining you. That's the trap no one talks about. Your comfort zone does not mean comfort, it means familiarity. And familiarity is seductive. That's why people stay in relationships that drain them, stay in habits that embarrass them, stay in routines that make them miserable, stay attached to versions of themselves they've already outgrown. Not because it feels good, but because it feels known. And the mind will choose a familiar pain over an unfamiliar freedom almost every time. That's what comfort zone addiction really is, choosing what hurts in a way you already understand over what heals in a way you can't yet predict. And honestly, that's why change feels so hard. It's not the new habit that scares you, it's the identity shift that comes with it. Because change is not just doing better, it's becoming someone your nervous system has never met. That's what makes it uncomfortable. When you start setting boundaries, you feel mean. When you stop over-explaining, you feel rude. When you stop chasing people, you feel unwanted. When you rest, you feel lazy. When you become disciplined, you feel restricted. Why? Because your brain is comparing your growth to the version of you it has memorized, and anything unfamiliar feels wrong at first. Not bad, just unfamiliar. That's an important difference. A lot of people sabotage their own growth because they mistake unfamiliarity for danger. So they run back. Back to procrastination because discipline feels too strict. Back to chaos because peace feels too quiet. Back to toxic attention because healthy love feels too calm. Back to self-doubt because confidence feels arrogant. Back to survival mode because softness feels unsafe. And then they say, "This is just who I am." No, this is just who you've practiced being. There's a difference. Most of your personality is repetition, not identity. Repetition. You are not just bad at consistency. You've just rehearsed avoidance more than discipline. You are not just an anxious person. You may have simply trained yourself to expect chaos. You are not just someone who self-sabotages. You may just be emotionally addicted to the familiar version of struggle. That's what makes comfort zones dangerous. They don't always look comfortable. Sometimes they look like stress, like dysfunction, like emotional unavailability, like fear, like excuses, like constantly starting over, like saying, "I want better," while protecting what keeps you stuck. And that's the most frustrating part of growth. Realizing the life you want is often hidden behind the habits you defend. Because people don't just resist pain, they resist uncertainty. Pain, at least, is predictable. Uncertainty asks for trust, and trust is hard when your entire life has been built on survival. So instead, people cling to control, even if that control is destroying them, because at least it's familiar. This is why healing can feel uncomfortable, why peace can feel boring, why stability can feel suspicious, why healthy love can feel underwhelming, why discipline can feel unnatural. Not because those things are wrong, but because chaos has become emotionally normal, and anything healthy feels emotionally foreign. That's the real battle. Not choosing between bad and good, choosing between familiar and better. And those are not the same thing. To grow, you have to stop asking, "Does this feel comfortable?" and start asking, "Does this lead me somewhere better?" Because comfort is not always peace. Sometimes it is just a well-decorated cage. And that's the thing about cages. If you stay in them long enough, freedom starts to feel irresponsible. That's why growth requires something most people avoid: tolerating the discomfort of becoming. Not performing it, not romanticizing it, actually enduring it. sitting in the awkwardness of new habits, letting discipline feel unnatural before it feels normal, letting peace feel unfamiliar before it feels safe, letting healthy love feel quiet before it feels secure, letting your new life feel strange before it feels like home. That is the price of transformation. You will feel out of place before you feel aligned. And most people quit in that exact space. Not because growth is wrong, but because it feels unfamiliar enough to be mistaken for failure. But discomfort is not always a warning. Sometimes it is proof you are no longer living on autopilot. The philosopher Epictetus said, "No man is free who is not master of himself." And that's what this comes down to. Freedom is not doing whatever feels easy. Freedom is no longer being ruled by the patterns that once kept you small. Real change begins when familiarity stops being your standard. Because the truth is, your comfort zone has never really kept you safe. It has only kept you predictable. And there comes a point where your old patterns stop feeling like protection and start feeling like self-abandonment. That is usually the moment your life begins to change. Not when change feels good, but when staying the same finally feels worse.